it was a good time. How was your flight?
I mean, I just love flying out of Buffalo where there's no direct flights whatsoever, and it makes me just do a whole detour my entire day. It's an absolute riot. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
No,
So,
it wasn't bad, dude. I'm here down here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and sidebar here. I think we got the YouTube going. I got some folks waiting in the other stream, so I got that figured out here. Whole StreamYard dilemma, but no, dude, I'm down here in Tulsa, Oklahoma for Major League Fishing Redcrest. I get to work for the week, so I'm here until Monday morning when I fly back home, which is a big bummer. Not in terms of that I'm here for Redcrest because I'm actually genuinely excited for Redcrest, but more of a bummer because all of our lakes opened, and that's like the most fun is when as soon as these things open and figures I'm gone for the week, that it's like going to be just a smackdown. I mean, not that it won't be when I'm home, but I just have serious FOMO right now that when I'm I might have to just not be on social media at all this week because I'm going to see people posting giants. So yeah. Not looking forward to that part, but either way, I'm looking forward to this week. So I'm going to keep my mind in Oklahoma, not at home with the lakes that people are catching giant, largemouth, and smallmouth, and then we'll have our turn.
you don't have to worry about me because I don't even have my boat yet. So
Scrub.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother dilemma. I definitely have to go get that next week, so and get it ready to go. Yeah.
Well, buddy, I am excited for tonight's show because one, I'm jealous you got to actually see him at the Classic and say hello. Unfortunately, I did not get to say hello to him, but tonight I got the opportunity to, and we got him here on the show. So let's bring him in, Mr. Jake Whitaker. What's going on, dude?
What's happening, guys? I appreciate you guys having me on, and just like you mentioned, I did not get to see you at the Classic, unfortunately, but got to see Andrew and got to see a lot of other people at the Classic as well. So. Did not qualify to fish it, which is unfortunate, but that's part of it. And I did enjoy seeing a lot of people at the Classic.
Yeah, very unfortunate because I feel like Hartwell would have set up for you the way you like to fish. So
yeah, it very much would have. And out of probably all the lakes in the Southeast, I probably have more time on the water on Hartwell than any other lakes. But with that being said, the Classic is always just a really cool event to, it's a great thing to fish in it. And, I will always, do my best to try to be in them, as far as fishing it. But it really was cool to see, how busy the expo was. And I got to go to the weigh-in on the last day and saw Jason, hold the trophy there. So it really was kind of cool to take a step back and be a fan again at the Classic. So I don't want to ever, be out of it again, but it was cool to experience.
Yeah. I still can't get over how many people actually walked through there those 3 days.
Yeah, man, it truly was wild. And I kind of bounced around a couple different booths. And, each day, we would be talking to people. I was like, man, this is busy for a Friday. And comes out like that was the biggest, the busiest Friday on record. And then, Saturday, man, this is, a lot of people here. And then Sunday. And then obviously they announced at the weigh-in on Sunday that that had broken the record for attendance again. So, and if anybody was there, that would, that's nothing, to realize that really truly was an attendance record. So I think it's awesome for the Classic, for bass, and, for the whole fishing industry to have, a great turnout like that there in Greenville.
Yeah. Well, one thing you can say is that the sport is still growing, which is crazy to think about. And it's awesome at the same time.
For sure. And, I saw, an array of people at the Classic Expo, whether it was, your older generation of people, your older fishermen, to, 5 and 6 year olds that were carrying around poles and just eat up with it. So, again, that was really cool to see. Spoke to a lot of people from a lot of different areas. There was not just a Greenville, South Carolina crowd there. There was people from out west, up north, down in Florida. So there was a lot of traveling to get to the Classic this year, and that was awesome to see.
Yeah.
I was So really fast, talking about the classic. We're not about to talk about it for too long.
That's fine.
I don't want to make you feel too bad, Jake.
It's all good.
That was probably one of the most exciting weigh-ins I've ever seen in person and watching. Because no one thought Christie had it. Everyone thought that obviously everyone thought he was sandbagging, and we all thought Welcher was sandbagging, but we thought that Welcher had more in coming in than because Stetson was weighing all of his. So everyone thought if Welcher had Stetson, then that was it. That Christie was too far behind on Bass Track.
Right.
But Christie's like, oh, you're gonna sandbag? Well, I'll sandbag 3 times as much, and then. Yeah. But that was so cool because I think it caught everyone off guard.
It was very cool, and I don't know, if you guys have, I'm sure y'all have heard the story. Like Stetson literally culled on his last cast, and we didn't know if he put that fish into Bass Track or what that cull did for him. So I mean, even up until those 3 guys weighed in, nobody knew. I think we all knew that it was going to be between those 3 guys, but nobody. It could have swung either way for those guys, and it truly could have. It was those 3 guys were less than a pound, from the winning weight. So it really could have swung either way. It was wild, and it was cool to see Jason win. Obviously he had his struggles there at Hartwell in the past, but. For him to pull it out. But all 3 of those guys are great fishermen. Kyle's an awesome dude. He's a fantastic fisherman, and same can be said about Stetson. So, and they're great fishermen, and it shows on the Elite Series all year long. So wasn't a surprise to me to see that.
I got to say, so we've had Kyle on the show before. We've chatted with him a bunch. The Classic was actually the first time I got to actually meet him in person. And something that really stood out for me that probably didn't stick out for the public. I heard a lot of people saying, the dude's got to be crushed, being that close to a Bassmaster Classic title. And I'm sure, obviously, Christie's been through it, obviously, multiple times.
Sure.
But one thing that was really cool, and obviously I'm sure internally he's like, it sucks, right? I mean, it's the Bassmaster Classic. But I will say, literally, 5 hours later, was hanging out with him at one of the hotels where it was Wes Logan, Drew Cook. And dude, you would never know that guy was ounces away from winning the Bassmaster Classic. Cause I feel like I kind of got a good look at what his character actually is. Kyle's behind the scenes. And that was pretty cool to see. You would never know that he was that close.
Well, and I'll just kind of, from my perspective, bass fishing is a sport where you lose a whole lot more than you ever win.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yes, he was very he has to be kind of devastated, but it's one of those deals where it's like, okay, whenever I do have a poor performance at a tournament, it's like, okay, I didn't do my best and I got beat. So, I'm going to look forward to the next one. I'm not going to dwell on, on this past tournament or whatever it may be. And I'm just going to move forward. And I think that's the best thing for Kyle to do would be to just move along and trust your fishing skills, and he's going to be just fine.
Heck yeah. So we got some, obviously we want to get into tonight's show because I'm really excited to talk about it. But before we do, one thing, congratulations to Ronnie Moore and his wife on their first child. And being that that happened, we have a comment here that's I have to ask. From Jackson Sullivan, a good buddy of ours, and he said, before we get started, Jake, are you going to be Ronnie's child's godfather?
I don't believe so. Ronnie and I are very good buddies. That is well publicized. But no, I don't think I'm going to be his godfather. I'm sure he has somebody else, maybe somebody else picked out, but I don't think I would be the best pick for that. But with that being said, my wife and I are very happy for Ronnie and Sarah, and it's just a really cool experience. And I know he's been excited for that little girl to come, and now that she's here, I know he's very excited.
Yeah. Calling up, hey Jake, can you watch her for a weekend? I'm at Lake Oahe, bro. I can't.
Yeah, sorry, bud, not gonna happen.
We got Cody Holland in the chat here saying, "What's up, Jake?" Saying hello.
Cody's a good buddy. I like Cody a lot. He's we were able to talk a bunch the last couple of years, and he's a good dude, a good awesome fisherman as well. So Cody, he's a good buddy.
Yes.
We also have your day 2 marshal at Santee Cooper, and I know we were talking about a pre-spawn show, but this is something kind of cool, and I think it'd be kind of cool to look at. I'm sure you've done your reflection, but
yep.
Is there anything you would have done differently at Santee Cooper?
Gosh almighty, that's a hard question because practice was pretty good for me. The very first day I probably had, somewhere in the upper 20s as far as, some fish caught, some bites that I had. So, the very first day of practice was awesome. And then I don't know if those bites led me down a path that I didn't really need to be going down, but I really fished similar to a lot of the way that, some of the top guys. I didn't really get into the bed fishing deal until the last little bit of the second day. I never had found any. So that, Santee's full of trees and a little bit of grass, and I kind of focused on that bite, and it just didn't materialize. I didn't get any good bites. I found 2 really big ones, as Derek, he remembers there the second day, 2 really big ones on bed at the end of the day, and that I never was able to catch. And that's just part of fishing. So looking back, obviously, bed fishing kind of ruled the deal there at Santee. But I'm not the best sight fisherman in the world. I don't mind doing it. But I would rather catch them, not looking at them if that's possible. So for me to say that I would change anything, I don't think I would. Maybe I, kind of could have switched areas up a little bit, but I fished the way that I wanted to. And if I would have done something different, I would have looked back and said, I should have, done what I'm strong at, and maybe had some regrets. So no regrets. It is what it is. Sometimes you don't land around those big ones, and that's okay. We survived it. It wasn't a terrible tournament. It wasn't a great one, but we salvaged a few AOI points and came out of there okay in Angler of the Year after Santee.
Yeah, it's got to be a nice little stretch here being in the Carolinas. I mean, one, obviously having the tournament in a couple weeks home with the Classic being at Hartwell, but
correct.
Getting into this time for a lot of people that's, beyond the Southeast right now, it's its own realm. But I think everyone's starting to get into that pre-spawn, closer to spawn phase. But I mean, for us up north, we just finally got ice out.
Yeah.
So we're not even a pre-spawn yet.
I was going to say, some of our bodies of water in bays in Ontario are already approaching 50 degrees, I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, Bailey. I know you left, but
I just want to leave this live stream right now. I'm so butthurt. It's not even funny. But no, so in the pre-spawn, take like a lake like Hartwell, where I think that's really what was going on there, right? I mean, obviously there was some spawning action, but a lot of the fish were really just starting to move up. On a body of water like that, or really, I guess you can kind of approach it anywhere around the country, but in the pre-spawn, you're going out to practice for a tournament. What are the first things you're going to look for? Like, where are you going to start to try to find your process, like get your process going and find fish?
Well, the first thing during the pre-spawn is I'm obviously looking at what my water temperature is. Is it, is it still high 40s? Is it low 50s? Are we mid to high 50s? Are we, approaching 60 or whatever? So I'm kind of, checking that out, checking out my, weather patterns. Are we on a warming trend? Have we just come off of a cold front? Do I have a cold front approaching? So all of this time of the year is just so volatile when it comes to fish movement, weather patterns, moon phases, and, structure that they're going to hang around. So I'll just work my way from early pre-spawn to before we get onto the bed. So early in pre-spawn, I'm looking for, in the Carolinas especially, I'm looking for those deeper ditches leading either into creeks or near spawning bays, still looking out, pretty deep water in that, 30 to 20 to 30 foot range. Still a lot of brush pile fish being caught then. Throwing a lot of slow moving baits, whether it's a jig or a shaky head, mixing in a jerk bait a lot. A jerk bait's a fantastic option in that first pre-spawn style, and the jerk bait works all the way through, but I really like it early in that pre-spawn phase. And then as we start warming up to, we get into our lower 50s and mid 50s, I'm going to start looking for more of those transition banks, whether it's in those creeks or a main lake bank that has some rock or some laydowns or whatever it may be that those fish can pull up on and be in deep water quickly if there's a cold front approaching, or they can be in shallow water quickly if it's, a good warming trend. So those transition style banks are really good in that, mid 50 degree water temperature. And then as we move on into as we get closer to the spawn, I'm going to start looking at those very backs of pockets under boat docks. I'm a boat dock fisherman. I like to fish boat docks. So I'll mix in boat docks all the way through this process, but I really see those boat docks playing a lot as we get closer to the spawn, especially those shallower ones. And I think that's like what we saw there at the Classic. We had a warming trend that week. Those fish, we had the moon was getting right. Those fish wanted to come up to start spawning. I don't think they really started spawning yet, but they were getting really close, and that's why we started seeing those shallow boat docks play a lot. So, that's kind of just my rundown of, a very simple rundown on how I approach things. And obviously there's a bunch of different ways to do it. A lot of different baits work all throughout this time. So it's really just a style of fishing thing. However you want to approach it, you can really do that. So, but I just, it's just different areas to focus on that have worked well for me in the past.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting that still sticks to me, and actually I had a conversation with him about it this morning before I was getting on my flight. We had Luke Palmer on the show.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said he noticed was that his fish in the Classic were only on like the last 3 docks, like
correct
in a pocket, not the fourth,
but
the last 3. And I thought that was a very interesting deal because, and I'd like to run this by you. Is that those fish? Are they essentially making that stretch of docks their imaginary secondary point if they're that certain creek doesn't have it to go therefore back in and then spawn? Is that what that is acting as?
Well, I just think they use the docks, especially there at Hartwell and a lot of other places in the South. They use docks to to basically stage on before they go spawn. And Hartwell is a very patternable lake when it comes to that, because a lot of the lake sets up similar. A lot of those the mouth of those creeks are fairly deep, so the docks that are more towards the mouth of a pocket have a little bit deeper water on them, 15, 20 feet of water on them. And those, just like Luke was saying, for whatever reason, those last 3 docks are usually obviously the shallowest, whether it's, I would say 8 foot and less under those docks. And in a lot of the pockets on Hartwell, you get to those back third of the docks, you're looking at 8 foot or less. So those fish will, just stage under them, and a lot of them are floating docks. They've got the black floats on. A lot of times, I've talked about it a bunch. You've heard a lot of the other pros talk about the black floats hold heat. So those fish that are coming up, they're cold. They're coming from deep water. They're looking for sunshine. They're looking for warmth. So they'll just slide right up under those black float docks and just sit there and wait until it's time to go, make a bed and go spawn. So that is a prime pattern on Hartwell that time of year. This time of year is, fishing the last few boat docks in a pocket. And just like you said, don't even waste your time at the front of them. Just go ahead and run those back couple, and I think you run across a good bag just like Luke did. But the black float docks are key in the pre-spawn if you've got those on your lakes. right before they start spawning, make sure you're hitting those docks very, very well. Jig, shaky head, wacky rig, jerk bait, swim baits. Really, there's not a bad thing to throw on them. You just kind of got to let the fish tell you what mood they're in and be able to catch them.
Are you a guy that starts like slow in terms of like drag a jig, or are you kind of guy that wants to start fast, like cranking, throwing a jerk?
Yeah, I'm a crank and wind type of guy, so I tend to start fast, and then if I can't get bit on some of that stuff, I'll slow down. Again, I would just rather catch them on a moving bait or something that I'm able to move fast. But even when I am fishing like a jig or something, I still fish pretty fast. I'm hitting, high percentage areas on those docks. It's 1 or 2 casts under those docks. And if they're not there, they're not there. And if they are, they're going to bite on the, first cast or 2. So I don't really like to soak a bait long during the pre-spawn, just because the fish are active most of the time. They're ready to eat. They're feeding up. They're trying to get fat. So I'm looking for those bigger fish that are ready to eat.
Yeah, I mean, at least Andy can touch on it too. And then in the north, and this time of year in the pre-spawn, those fish are not biased to anything that goes in front of their face. They'll eat a dang leaf on a hook. But I think there's something to be said about cold fronts in the pre-spawn too, where that will still kind of completely turn off on you, and you have to go to.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is like a major cold front comes through right as fish are either trying to start spawning or they're getting close. And there's definitely a day or 2 right after that cold front that passes that can be very tough. But what I will say is the day of, like if it's real cold and rainy, the day of as a front is passing, I have seen that be a awesome fishing day. And you wouldn't think that. So the pre-spawn time, you get those nasty, ugly days. Those days can be special. So I encourage people that, if you want to go have a really good day, you try getting out on those nasty days. Make sure you have your, your right rain suit and clothing. But if you can handle it, man, you can catch a lot of fish on those nasty days.
The best days to fish, because there's 2 reasons. 1, the fish bite, and 2, there's like no angling.
Nobody out there. You're exactly right. You are exactly right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like the more I think serious you get about bass fishing, the less you go when it's like really amazing weather out.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
you almost look at it and say, unless it's like a spawning tournament, you look at it, it's like, oh man, it's going to be sunny and nice today. I don't want
to. There's going to be 100,000 pledge boaters, 5-foot wakes.
Unless it's like ledge season or something like that, where it could be somewhat good. But
true.
So something with the pre-spawn that still confuses the hell out of me, and I think it confuses the heck out of a lot of anglers, but obviously you guys are way better at it than the rest of us, is when you get in the pre-spawn, you're following these fish up, and like we just talked about, where a front moves in.
Yep.
Do you think those fish just turn off and are still in that same areas, or are they simply pulling back to something? And if so, do you have a process of trying to find them again?
Yeah, well, gosh, I mean that still honestly gets a lot of us at times. It's hard to say, and it depends on how far those fish are in their process. Like if I know for a fact, if once a fish sets up on a bed, it takes a lot to knock that fish off. But for a fish that is, yet to make a spawning bed and is, just kind of transitioning into an area, I don't think that they actually move a ton. I think it's just kind of I just think they kind of get in a deal where it's like, not really in a biting mood, because most of the time after a cold front, you get these high bluebird sky days, high pressure, and everybody knows high pressure days are just not the greatest for fishing. So I don't know that they move a ton. But I think it's just one of those deals where you really just kind of got to slow down, and, maybe whatever you think those fish were doing, maybe find that first piece of cover that they're going to come back to, or, maybe they're going to slide to a secondary point instead of being on a boat dock in a pocket. So it's really trial and error. A lot of fish are, totally different in certain areas. Like I say, I mean, Lake Hartwell and the lakes around my home, they're herring lakes. So they tend to bite better on sunny days just because they're always looking up at those herring. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on where you're at in the country and what kind of fish you're targeting. So, but that's my take on it. I don't think they really move as far as like back out to the river channel or nothing. I just think they kind of hunker down and kind of lay low for a day or two.
Yeah, I was going to say on days like that, I find I catch them on everything, but very slowly. So like, it's kind of like a junk pattern, but they'll bite like a wacky Senko fish extremely slow. But you'll catch one on a dock, one on a tree, one on a piling.
Exactly.
So they're just
very hard to pattern. It's very hard to pattern off of a post cold front condition. They're just like you said, it's kind of their bites are random. They'll still bite if you can get around them. That's just very random.
Well, and the nice part now is you have forward-facing sonar, so you can tell if they're still there.
That's just
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because I've seen a lot of fish since I've had that thing, and they don't bite, and it's like I wish I didn't even know you were there.
I was out on one of our lakes. Was it 2 days ago? And so water temp was 38, and I had gotten into a couple of them, but they were already like the schools of them were getting spooked by just a simple blade bait and Ned rig. And I was like, all right, screw this. This shouldn't be happening right now.
Too cold. Give that water 4 degrees. Still start.
There you go.
Yeah. So when you're fishing the pre-spawn and you're on a good group of fish in terms of a size of the school, right? In terms of numbers. And you can't really seem to get a bite over, say, 3 pounds.
Right.
Is there any switches that you'll make in terms of applications to try to trigger a big bite, or are you just going to keep moving until you find a larger class of fish?
Or color of a bait?
Yeah, I mean, just like a lot of times.
He's like, don't make me answer this.
I mean, you could be catching them on like a red crankbait. We'll a staple in the South, and pre-spawn a red crankbait. You're catching 3-pounders on that bait all day long. You can't catch anything bigger. Well, just I've switch up to a jig. They're biting crawfish, obviously, because they're biting red crankbaits. They're biting crawfish. So try a jig, or try a shaky head, or just like Andrew said, a different colored square bill or something. I've noticed a lot of times, especially around, my house, when red is really good, you want to throw that, but I've also seen where chartreuse works just as good. And it's just something different that, they're not accustomed to yet, to where you want to just throw something a little different. But yes, definitely. And there are times where you get on this group of fish that they're based on, and they're schooled up by size. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's you try to look for an area very similar to that, just somewhere else. So my first plan of action, if I'm just trying to get a bigger bite, is maybe throw a little bit bigger bait. But it could also mean slow down a little bit or speed up a little bit. So that's just kind of my general rule of thumb is first of all, if you're catching 3-pounders, I don't care where you're at, that's pretty good. So
that northern
Santee Cooper, apparently.
Well, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, again, just trial and error. Just try throwing different stuff if you're catching the same class fish on a certain thing. Just give them something a little different to look at, and I think that would help.
I think that's one thing people, myself included, overlook a lot is speed. Where you might throw something where you're used to throwing it, like your style of throwing a certain bait, you'll throw that only that cadence, and you'll put it away. and start using something else where they might have eaten that if you just maybe either slowed it down or sped it up.
Well, I mean, one instance that's already happened this year was down at in Florida at the Harris chain. The very first day, I was literally ripping a chatterbait through grass, and like I was just trying to keep up with it as best I could. Once I rip it, I've got a high speed reel to try to to keep up a slack, and those fish were just killing it then. And I noticed some of the guys were just either throwing worms or maybe just fishing a little bit slower. They were catching fish too, but I was able to get a couple of the really good bites those first couple of days, and I think maybe that might have been key, but who knows? But it worked out. So definitely speed of retrieve and maybe a lure change mixed in as well could help.
Yeah, I'm actually really intrigued, and I wanted to sneak it in here selfishly because I was so curious what's going on at Harris. That because you saw it, and it's I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, there was a lot of boats in that
area.
Was a ton Party of Cove.
Yeah, and guys, there was so many fish in that area that literally everybody that fished in there, caught fish. And obviously, not everybody caught the right size, but
right
at any point in time, you would look up and somebody was either putting one in a live well or boat flipping one or whatever it may be. There was very few times throughout the 3 days that I fished there that there was a lull in the action. It was a little bit slower for me on day 3, but there was still a lot of guys that caught them in there. So I think that area just had the correct environment, everything set up perfectly that week for them. And there was a ton of fish in there from pre-spawners. I think a few were spawning on the bank as well. And then a few post-spawners mixed in as well. So it was just kind of the perfect storm for that area.
Yeah. So what's the strategy behind that? Like, is it just basically you play musical chairs with everybody? And you
I think I was in the second flight the very first day. So I had a decent boat draw. And I was, when we blasted off, a couple of the boats in front of me, they turned left and headed toward the Dead River. And I was like, okay, maybe this won't be too bad. I knew there would be some company in there, but I didn't, think it would be that bad. But whenever I got in there the first morning, I think I was like mid-20s or mid to high 20 boat number. And I bet there was already 15 boats already in there. And I rolled in there and I was like, oh gosh, like this is going to be – we're going to be good if we can get a couple fish out of here. But luckily there was nobody on the little stretch of grass that I wanted to fish. So I just kind of pulled up and literally like my third cast, I caught like a 3.5 and which was the biggest fish that I had caught there up until that point. During practice, I had caught several fish out of that area, but none of them were really bigger than 2.5. I was just really going to that area just to try to get a limit and then move along, go fish some canals and do that stuff. But man, like I said, the third cast, I caught a 3.5. And then it was just like every 15 or 20 minutes, I caught a 4-pounder after that. And it was wild. It was fun. We had a lot of fun, but yeah, getting back to your point, it was basically just fish around and mill around with everybody. I think we all realized like nobody is going to have their own little stretch just because there's so many people. So, I don't think anybody got in an argument with each other. We just kind of realized like, look, this is a community hole and we've just got to do our best and, try to outfish the guy next to us. And it was really good. It was really nice to see all the guys kind of get along and share those fish the way that we did. It was really cool.
Now, like to a follow-up question on that, how many boats does it take to not become a community hole, but like a city hole, right? Like everybody's there. So maybe that's the common denominator. If you throw everybody in the tournament in one spot, nobody will fight, because it seems like if you get 2 guys in an area and they're fishing the same stretch, fireworks can happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, and like I said, I mean, this area, it looked small, and it does look small on the map, but once you got out there, it was actually a pretty good sized area. Yeah. So it handled, it could handle those boats for a few days, as it showed that it did. Yeah. But the first day, I think once blast off got ended, I think there was probably I don't know. I don't know if there was 20 boats in there or not. Maybe 20 is probably a good number. But the funny thing, day 2 rolls around, and that morning, and it looked like there was like 35 in there. I don't know what happened, how they got word of that, but there was definitely a few more boats that showed up there on day 2. But that's part of it. But like I said, it was definitely community hole, but we all kind of worked together and made it work.
We have a really good question here.
Okay.
From Jim Johnson on Facebook. It says, what do you think about how the full moon affects the pre-spawn? He said he fished last Friday in the morning after the full moon, 42-degree water, and they were stacked in 3 to 4 feet. Do you believe in the full moon with the pre-spawn and push and fish shallow?
Definitely. I think full moons throughout the year will, especially pre-spawn all the way through the fall. I don't necessarily, in the wintertime, but even summertime, there's always when it's a full moon, there's always a little wave of fish that moves shallow, just because I think a lot of the bait actually moves shallow on, even just like he mentioned, 42-degree water. I just think that those fish can, they can see at night. And for whatever reason, I think those fish kind of just move along with the bait. I think the bait gets pulled up a little bit shallower. But definitely as we get closer to the spawn, those fish are ready, especially now in the South. These fish are ready to spawn. They're getting ready. So that full moon draws a ton of fish shallow. It doesn't necessarily make them spawn, but it's a big key and a big help. So I definitely believe that a full moon is a driver for some shallow fish and pre-spawn.
Heck yeah. That's one thing I need like a lunar table, something I need to pay more attention to. I think especially this time of year, which it's something I've paid attention to in the past. Like, because I would go out and night fish for bass.
Yep.
That could be a lot of fun, especially when things get tough.
Sure. Well, and something that I've, started paying a little more attention to, not a ton, but I'll just look at it and kind of see if it matches up to my day of fishing is, your major and minor feeding times with these lunar patterns. So for some instance, if it's a full moon, you might have a feed at night. So your major feed during the day might be afternoon time or whatever it may be. So it doesn't always, determine, they're obviously not always going to bite during those time periods, but it is cool to see if you got more bites during a certain time frame and it match up to like a minor or major feed. So that's just something that you can look at, before you go out in the day, look up your moon phase and check out your almanac for minor and major feed times throughout the day and just see if it matches up to what happens during your day.
I think that's an awesome point. Now, one thing I was going to say about the full moon, and one of the people who taught me how to bass fish, they basically told me it has something to do with crawfish and it makes like their shells softer. So fish will actually move up and eat crawfish. So, I don't know. I just love throwing big jigs when the full moon happens any time of year, because I feel like that's when you get your best jig bite personally.
For sure.
And I don't know if that's confidence or if it's because of the full moon soft shell crawfish deal actually being legit. So
I have no idea. That sounds good to me. I'll roll with it.
Fair enough.
We got the Bassmaster YouTube in the house tonight saying, "What's up?"
Yeah. What's up, guys?
Give a shout to the boys.
That's
I think Ronnie hacked into the Bassmaster YouTube.
I'm sure he probably did.
Little did he know we were picking on him earlier.
That's it.
Yes.
We have a thing where we like to pick on Ronnie on this show, more the fantasy fishing stuff.
He's easy. Yeah. He's an easy person to pick on. Ronnie's a good dude, though. He's
good sport about it.
He is, and he's good at what he does. He brings a lot to Bassmaster and Bassmaster Live, and I think he makes the show a little bit better.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, not to go off on another tangent here, but it was really fun a while back when I first met Ronnie to talk to him about how similar our backgrounds were in terms of college and going to school for sport management, and then both wind up saying, "Screw that, let's go to the fishing
right.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works out, right?
That's right. So here's another question I have in terms of pre-spawn and getting up shallow, and especially for some people that don't have a forward-facing technology and have all the gadgets. I know you had mentioned looking at like one, you can tell them mapping in terms of banks and steep banks and transitions, but also looking at the bank composition that you can see above the water line.
Correct.
So visual cues. What is the most important visual cue for someone that doesn't have all the fancy electronics to get up and try to, go fish a bank to try to catch these pre-spawners?
Yeah. So, I mean, the majority of the time, the way the bank looks, outside of the water is very similar to what's under the water. So when I'm in the pre-spawn and if I don't have live or active target like I have, I am looking for, channel bends, creek channel bend banks. I'm looking for flat banks that are coming off when I get closer to the spawn. If you noticed a lot during the Classic, a lot of those boat docks that Christy was fishing were on super flat banks. So those the water under those boat docks they weren't deep boat docks. So just being able to look out and kind of see the lay of the land above the water is a very good representation of what's under the water. It's not always the case. I've been in areas where it's been a super steep drop off above the water and it'd actually be a pretty flat bank. But the majority of the time, the lay of the land on top of the water or out of the water is very good representation of what's under the water. So, in the pre-spawn, a creek channel bend bank is a fantastic pre-spawn bank. A lot of those fish can stage there, just like I said earlier. They have access to deep water if they need it, and they have access to the shallow water if the weather allows that to happen. So, and I'm throwing spinner baits and crankbaits on those areas. If I've got a cold front, maybe I'm slowing down, jig, shaky head, that kind of thing. But those creek channel bends or where the creek channel just kind of swings up close to the bank. It doesn't have to be a bend. If it's, those banks that are leading into a pocket that have a little bit deeper water can be fabulous as well during the pre-spawn.
Heck yeah. I like the fact that you're keeping it simple. So like watching Caleb Kufall at Santee and like seeing Luke Palmer keeping things simple. I'm talking in terms of bait wise.
Yep.
Are you a guy that kind of has just a main selection of go-to baits? You don't get too kind of fancy with all of these crazy JDM stuff?
For sure. Yeah. I keep it as simple as I can. Everybody knows me. I like to throw my wacky rig during the spring. I like to throw a jig a lot, but I'm also not afraid to pick up a spinnerbait and a square bill as well. So, but no, I keep it as simple as possible. I don't get crazy on colors. I don't think, the wild and crazy colors are, any different than green pumpkin or black and blue or whatever it may be. So, I just think it makes it easier as far as bait selection wise. If you get, all tore up I caught them on green pumpkin gold or silver and they're not biting that. So I'm going to switch up to, watermelon, purple, red. And I just, try to keep it as simple as possible. I keep my colors very similar. Obviously, I've got my darker colors to the lighter colors, but I don't have 100 packs of each different color. So I try my best to keep it as simple as possible. I think it just makes you, more confident in what you are throwing. And it just allows you to try to, instead of worrying about the bait you're throwing, I think you worry more about where you're throwing it instead of what you're throwing.
Yeah, like when there's certain people that are saying, "Oh, they were on the purple flake." It couldn't be.
Yeah,
just
I'm gonna throw this out there right now. I don't think flake matters.
No,
I hate flake. I don't own anything with flake anymore. Like it's
yeah.
I hate it. I just I don't want to think about it. And like if,
Yeah.
honestly, if they're legitimately going to be on something that's purple flake over a straight green pumpkin, I'm just gonna leave. Like, because I'm not gonna figure that out. I don't have the. No, that ain't me.
I'm with you.
The best thing to do is just dip that tail in some chartreuse or
there you go.
You're probably going to get bit a little better.
If you're not getting bit, dip your tail in chartreuse. It'll work every time.
That's right. So, Andy, kind of the same question for you in terms of smallmouth, right?
Yeah.
One thing I've kind of learned with the Finger Lakes is that the largemouth and the smallmouth have I should say completely, but two different routes in terms of pre-spawn and getting up on the bed.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond electronics for you and smallmouth, what kind of like cues have you found? Because there's not much visual cue on a Great Lake for smallmouth in terms of pre-spawn. What kind of things have you learned to kind of help follow you along on this path for these fish?
So the biggest thing is knowing where the wintering areas are and understanding where possibly the spawning flats could be and knowing what's in between. So like if there's any rock structure, steep contour breaks, drop-offs, reefs. But to break it down even simpler, if you have a big harbor, knowing where the steep breaks are in the harbor that the fish are going to use as transition areas to run into those shallow spawning flats in the back. So for instance, in Buffalo, coming into the harbor, there's a lot of really steep breaks where it goes from like 2 foot of water to 28, 30 foot. And those fish use those as highways. As soon as the ice is off the lake, you can catch them right up steep, real shallow, but in like that 15 to 20 foot. And then they'll use that when the water gets to 55, they're on bedding gone. So like that's the easiest way to do it. But in the main lake, it's a lot harder to basically figure out where they're going to spawn because everything shallow is a big flat. It's just knowing where the in-between is to be able to follow them from winter to pre-spawn to spawn.
Cool. Can you guys hear me okay? I hit my mic button. I hit the volume. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. I hit the thing and I was like, I don't know if I turned that or not. So, so Jake, looking at pre-spawn I don't get a lot of opportunities unless Andy takes me out on the Niagara River to fish current fisheries. Do you think that a pre-spawn in terms of where the fish, where they stage to get up to go back and spawn is different from a lake setting? Like, do you have to approach it any different?
I mean,
current fish are funny.
Yeah, current fish are their own beast. They, a lot of the times current fish, obviously they don't necessarily want to spawn in current because they don't want, they don't want their eggs, floating down river as soon as they get rid of them. So they're going to try to find the area where there is the least amount of current so that they can spawn. So with that being said, in a lot of times, in a current driven fishery, those fish can go from being in the current to out of the current in a very small space. So it's kind of hard. So, I mean, wherever you could find that area that has the least amount of current, I'm sure there's going to be fish around there somewhere. Now, you may have to look in the current to find them pre-spawn, but I think they're going to be gathered up and getting, in a school or gathering really close by to where they're going to spawn. So if you could find that would probably be a great place to load the boat. But again, as those fish are trying to spawn, they're going to try to get out of the current. So whether it's a flat or a bay or something that is, not directly in the river current is going to be where those fish are going to spawn. So looking somewhere close is going to be your best bet, I would imagine.
Yeah, so instead of like on a lake where you might start deeper and work your way back of a creek, you might want to start flip-flop, start where they might go to spawn.
Exactly. And then like you said, if they're not there, maybe you ease on out to the current, but maybe there's, a shallow bar that still has current, but maybe those fish are set up there waiting to move.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Another thing I've found about, like, this is going pre-spawn, like winter going into pre-spawn, I found current fish tend to live shallower than any other fish.
I think that's a fair statement throughout the year. I really do. Now there's, different circumstances where, northern, smallmouth in current, they like to live deeper as well. But with that being said, I've seen those fish, live super shallow year round as well. So I would agree, river fish and current fish do tend to live shallower than normal lake fish.
Yeah, I've been super intrigued, and not to go into any details and get you in any trouble, but just out of curiosity, go up to St. Lawrence River in those winter months and just poke around shallow to see if you find them up there.
I don't know that you would find a ton, but I would be almost willing to bet if you did find one, it would probably be a really good one.
I would think so, but we'll never know. We're not allowed to fish them.
That's right.
So.
Which I think should be a crime, that we're not allowed to fish them throughout those months.
Well, yeah. So you could fish the St. Lawrence, I think, until November 31st.
Yeah.
In 2 counties, and then if you go way up the river, I think you can actually fish it later.
You can, yeah. It's the best section is that you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But either way, that's neither here or there.
We'll digress.
We got a good comment here from Team Bass Pack. He's talking about you came in 3rd at Lake Chickamauga last year. Oh, that was 2020. It feels like last year.
COVID year. Yeah. That's wow.
These 2.5 years are all kind of jumbled into one.
Yeah, man.
All right?
I know. I was reading it and I was like, yeah, it was last fall. What he said, what might be different in this event coming up in a couple weeks? And I'm sure a lot is going to be different. So
most everything is going to be different.
Just about everything.
I don't know that a 2.8, little swim bait is going to be much of a factor in this one, but no, I mean, really everything's going to be different. The grass is not topped out like it was in October. There's still grass available, but it's not the same style of fishing. Your chatterbaits, your lipless crankbaits are working right now. And it's springtime in the South, so those fish are obviously going to start making a push, depending on weather, to the banks to start spawning. There's going to be you're going to be really be able to fish however you want to fish at Chickamauga and catch fish, and it's just going to be trying to figure out how to catch those better than average fish. But again, everything's going to be different. There may be still a few areas of the river that produced in the fall that will produce again. It's just going to be a different style of fishing, I think.
Will your marina docks play again?
Hey,
I won't think you answer that.
I'm not saying that you couldn't catch some fish on those right now, because believe it or not, that marina dock was not very deep. It was like 10 foot at its deepest where I was catching them. So it very well could be a good place to try to catch a pre-spawn fish that set up. And I've caught a lot of big fish around marinas this time of year pre-spawn. So I think it's just a great habitat for them to live year round. I think the bait lives there. There's probably some brush. There's a lot of trash, great cover. There's always shade available. So marinas are a fantastic area, especially if it's a little bit shallower than normal. They're a fantastic area to pre-spawn fish for sure.
So Andy, we have and Jake as well, we have our Lake Chickamauga fantasy fishing preview show next Thursday.
Yeah.
We do it a week leading up. So Andy, we're going to test to see if Bart listens to this, because Jake, what do you think it's going to take a day?
A day? It's Chickamauga. I don't think we're going to see Santee Cooper weights, but I mean, really, you could be somewhere in that 80 to 90 pound range. I think 20 a day would be very strong. I think Chickamauga just gets fished so much this time of year. But with that being said, there's fish moving in and out daily there. If you can find the right stretch, you can really catch some nice fish there. I would look for, high 80s, mid to high 80s to win the tournament. But again, I just don't think that we're going to see those that 100-pound mark broke. But who's to say? It may be, and we may hit it dead perfect, and it may just be another slugfest. But I think there's going to be a ton of fish caught. I think there's going to be some great stringers caught. But I don't know that Chickamauga is as good as it was a few years ago. I'm sure it's still a great fishery, but it has it's definitely gotten the pressure the last few years.
Taking some lumps.
Yes.
Are you saying that 1,400 boats in a weekend's bad for a lake?
Yes, it is very bad.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing you guys probably have to contend with. It's not even the fish, right? It's not the pleasure boaters, but the recreational bass fishermen that will be out. And 9 other tournaments probably.
Right. And I have people ask me this all the time, about, they shouldn't really be. Well, look, those guys have just as much right to the water as we do when we have our tournament in these areas. It's just nice when we pull up in an area and maybe somebody's fishing it, it's nice when they kind of understand that we are fishing for a living and trying to, put money in the bank for us. I'm sure they are too. But it's just nice, and I'm never gonna be one to to run up and cut a local off or somebody that's fishing. I'm not gonna do that, but it is nice when they kind of help us out a little bit. It makes it a whole lot easier for us to be a little more compassionate towards them. So, but like I said, they everybody has as much right to those lakes when we're there as we do. So. If they want to fish, that's great. Go for it.
Yeah, I think it takes a avid bass angler to understand the ethics behind going out when you guys got a tournament. Yeah, I thought, I think it was day 4 of Santee. It was either day 3 or day 4. That I thought that it was going to turn into WWE when you see Corey Johnston and a guy way in the back. You didn't see him at the time.
Yep.
You see him catch like a 5.
Yep.
And then the next 2 minutes later, the guy's right next to Corey. Around Corey. I'm like, Corey, I thought something was
and it's like, I completely understand. Like the fish are on the bed. Everybody wants to go out there and catch them. They really do. And that's great. But there was only 10 boats on the water that, the other day when I saw the same thing was when Corey was fishing. It was just like, can you just not go, across the creek somewhere and find somewhere? I was just
giving them a little bit of they were 10 yards away.
That's brutal.
So, but like I say, I try not to worry about pleasure fishermen, and just because I've been there before. I've wanted to go fishing before and have stuff like that happen. But it's just nice when they understand what's going on.
Yeah. So Jake, we're gonna let you go here in a second, but there's one more question I want to ask. That's a really good question. It's from Tyler Hillman on Facebook, and he's saying, how does water clarity affect when you break down a lake in the pre-spawn?
Okay, well, clean water is always king when the water is colder. But when you get warming, muddy water, you can knock their lights out when it's dirty water and it's warming. So that's my rule of thumb is if I am in an area where the water is stained and we are under a warming trend, I am getting as shallow as I can with a spinnerbait, chatterbait, crankbait. I'm power fishing as hard as I can, in some of that stained and dirty water. But, clear water, you're always going to be able to, catch fish in clear water. You may have to, finesse them a little bit more in that cleaner water. But whenever you've got cold water, you never really want. So I'm looking for clean water when it's really cold. And then if we're warming up and we're starting to see some of that stained water, I'm definitely going to be more of a fan of stained water than I am clean water.
Is there a magic number that you put
no,
on it?
not really. Not really. As long as it's warming, I don't, if it's 51 and warming, that's fine. If it's 56 and warming, that's great. If it's 48 and I just don't want a cool and it's not necessarily warming, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, and muddy water tends to warm a little quicker too.
It does.
It?
It sure does. It sure does.
So that's probably why they're getting drawn there.
That's correct. That's correct.
Isn't it kind of just so intriguing how like bass can know when certain parts of the lake?
It's
like a vacuum.
That was kind of one of the deals at Santee. The very first day of practice, I found a little area that wasn't dirty, but it was, had a little stain to it. And man, they were eating a blade off of a spinnerbait. It was fun. And for whatever reason, that area cleaned up a little bit, and I was not able to, get those fish to bite anymore. I don't know if they left or moved or what happened. So, it's just one of those deals where you just kind of got to try to stay on top of it and move with it.
Yeah, definitely a very intriguing topic. And dude, thank you so much for taking time
out
to chat.
Hey guys, I greatly appreciate you guys having me on, and we'll do it again sometime soon.
Yeah. Heck yeah, buddy. You looking forward to a specific event coming up, or are you just kind of ready to go one by one?
Man, I think all the tournaments coming up are going to be fantastic tournaments. There's going to be some big fish caught at Chick, and then we've got a little bit of a break after Chick, and then we've got, I think, Fork and Pickwick on schedule coming up after that. So there's some awesome lakes that are coming up, and big fish are going to be caught. So I'm looking forward to all of them, really. It's going to be fun.
Well, we hope you're one of them, buddy, and we hope that there's some good luck coming to you. We have this weird trend that when we get guys on here and then they have elite events afterwards, they do well. Luke has been doing great.
I'm here. Hey, guys, I will give you guys all the credit in the world if that works out for me.
When you win Chick or Fork, you just need to shout us out on stage.
Thanks for the Serious Angler Podcast.
Go get it done, man. Go get it done.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you.
Have a good night.
Yes, sir.
See you, Jake.
Dude, could you imagine if that became like a trend?
We'd be the hottest topic for getting anglers on here. They're like, let me get the show. No, we've had that happen a couple times. Like that happened with Wes Logan. That happened with Gussie. Like it was kind of intriguing. Not that Luke won, but like 6th place at the Classic, and then what was he, third, fourth?
Yeah, third or fourth. Yeah. Oh man,
that video of him catching that 9-pounder was freaking awesome.
I thought he was about to get pulled in after he set that hook. When it pulls, I'm like, oh no.
But seriously, big thank you to Jake for joining us tonight. That was a really good Prespawn show, and I'm excited to watch him at Chick because I love Chickamauga. That's my favorite place in the world. Yeah, so we still got Jake in the queue. We have Jim Johnson who tunes into our fantasy fishing shows, and every time he picks someone, apparently they do bad. He said he will not pick you, Jake. So you're in the clear.
I think he picked Christie as Santee Cooper, and he finished like 90.
Oh, yeah, so that's just proof.
If I remember correctly.
You know what's so cool though about that? Like watching Christie on day one, where he basically just openly said, "I don't care where I finish anymore. I've qualified for next year's Classic. I'm gonna fish how I want. If I suck, I don't care. I just won 300 grand." And I was like, "What a baller move!" Like he just doesn't.
I think his direct quote was like, "The good news is this is how I'm fishing. The bad news is I don't know if I'm going to catch him how I'm fishing." I'm like, jeez.
I just thought, but dude, you know how amazing that has to feel mentally to go into a tournament knowing you've already made the Classic, you got 300 grand check, and you can go fish how you want and not worry about making the Classic.
Weight off your shoulders,
dude. That makes you so dangerous. I feel like
free.
That's awesome though. But again, big thank you to Jake and folks. We hope to see you guys later this week. We got an episode coming out this Friday with Tristan McCormick. We're getting Tristan on the show. That'll be a good one. We're gonna see if he's picked up any shampoo sponsorships since the Classic. That seemed to be the Mercer joke ongoing. So I'll stop.
Head and shoulders.
Yeah, that's right.
Shoulders,
But I'm intrigued, very intrigued to see how this week is going to go for Major League Fishing's Red Crest. For folks that might have tuned in that didn't see the introduction, we did have a YouTube mishap, but it seemed like we fixed it quick. I am down in Tulsa, Oklahoma for Major League Fishing's Red Crest, and it'll be their first expo. So it'll be very intriguing to see how that event goes. And do you know they're helicoptering their anglers in from the lake to the expo? Or to the stage?
Why. They're just going to helicopter them one at a time.
Yeah. It's like, the stage where they talk about how their day goes and shout out sponsors and stuff. They're going to helicopter them.
Interesting.
Where did they put their boats?
Seems like a lot of money, too.
Hey, they must be doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, in fact, today my Uber driver asked me what I was in town for. And I told him I'm here working for Major League Fishing Red Crest. He goes, dude, I watch Major League Fishing all the time. So sounds like there's some Oklahoma MLF fans here. So
well, I'm intrigued. There's some big name guys from Oklahoma fishing that tournament. So, like, maybe some favorites that you have to look at will be like an Edwin Evers, James Elam, who is very good on Grand Lake. Is he fishing Red Crest? I think he is. I don't think
Elam's in Red Crest.
Oh, I thought
it's only 41 anglers.
I
don't think Elam is in Red Crest because I think the only Oklahoma guy in it was Evers.
Oh, man.
But I know there's some Texans in it, so Grand Lake. But, Grand Lake for a lot of guys is, they've all been very familiar with it. But it's going to be intriguing because I got out of the airport and it was like, it was 46 and raining. So it was not a warm practice for those guys. But it's supposed to be warm this week. It's going to be mid-60s until, I think, Friday through Sunday is going to be like high 80s.
He is the favorite. He's fishing it. He is in Red Crest.
So so then you have two Oklahomans in it. Yeah. But any of these guys though, you go down that list and it's like it's Prespawn here. They're gonna catch them.
I agree. It's gonna be.
Hey, there we go.
Like all the classics, Bassmaster classics I remember from Grand. It's always like a crankbait, a big spinnerbait, or a jig on like riprap or a jerkbait, but I don't know what the water temp is going to be quite be like. But 47 degrees at night, that sets up for a pre-spawn smash fest. And if there's any dinge in that water, and as Jake said earlier, like 40s and warming to 60, they're going to knock their lights off. I have a feeling it's going to be a fun event to watch.
Yeah, dude, I think there's some big fish that are going to get caught, especially when it comes. So we got Luke Loverick in here. He said water temp is that water temp, Luke, 48 to 55 degrees? Because that seems pretty cold for Oklahoma right now. 48 to 55.
Maybe he lives there. Yeah.
No, Luke's been out here riding around with Kevin Van Dam. He's been, he's been spoiled down here running with the king. But
yeah, lucky him.
40 degrees. Holy crap, that's cold for Oklahoma right now. Maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like that's water temp.
They are going to smash them if it's 48 to 55 degrees and warming with muddy water because of the rain they just got and rain still.
Dude, this weekend's going to be high 80s, like Friday to Sunday.
Yeah. And
they're going to smoke them. So if you can make it to this weekend, I feel like it's anybody's game.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I like watching all fishing that's broadcasted just to learn anything I can. But an event that shapes up like this, just like kind of like how Hartwell was, like I think it's gonna be fun as hell.
Bring it on! Yeah. I can't wait to watch. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Either way, thank you again to Mr. Jake Whitaker for joining us tonight. I'm gonna tune off here. I need to get some food. But Andy, looking forward to our episode, Mr. Tristan McCormick, in a few days.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that as well. Maybe that could be a hot question for him if he did get a hair shampoo sponsor.
I'm sure he was asked 300 times already.
I'm sure, but it would be funny anyways.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys on Friday.